Hey there, everybody. We've got a special treat for you today. We're going to get a behind-the-scenes tour of Merry Sales. This is one of the coolest, most interesting bike companies that we know of. They're also one of the oldest bike distributors in the U.S., and we're going to get the tour with none other than Jim Porter. So pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you, Russ.
How old is Merry Sales, the company?
Well, officially incorporated in 1906, so we do have some records that go back to 1903, and it was started by Edwin Merry.
We'll get into the history a little bit later, but let's get a tour of the digs first.
We have Ming here, who does a lot of help in our office. Our newest guy here is Luke.
Who also happens to ride like the largest size Rivendell Atlantis ever.
Yeah, we had to pull him away from Rivendell. You know. And there's Dan, the head of operations. This is Howard, our CPA. Here's a very old picture of repack. Oh. And here's actually the repack course. It was drawn by Joe Breeze. Nice. That's Joe Breeze, Gary Fisher, Charles Kelly. Archive room with a lot of very old bike stuff.
It's where the magic happens.
Yeah, here's the first packing area. That's my sister Mary. Hi. We get along great.
That's Dan.
Back here is where we keep everything. Here we have mainly Japanese tires, American New Bomb tape. The new goat gloves are down there. We did that with Grant. Down here we have a mixture of rims, cassettes, cogs.
What's the weirdest product that you guys carry that you personally think is a little bit odd but fun to have?
Everything's a little odd, you know, because being in San Francisco, we can't afford to sell commodities. We don't even sell tubes. We try to look out and find things that are exotic that you can't find, everywhere.
Right.
If you can find it everywhere, then usually, we're not interested. Give an example like a suspension fork, where there's a plethora of available stuff. They all do a very good job, and getting involved in that would be extremely capital intensive. And unless the opportunity arose itself, like a friendly manufacturer said, "Oh, we need some help here," blah blah blah, kind of avoid that. Whereas, when I'm visiting a shop or talking to people, and they say, "I wish this exists,"
right?
And even if that meant only sold 100 a year,
right? That's
perfect for us. Yeah. Because for our long history in Asia, we could find a manufacturer to do anything. Well, I often tell them, I could build you a toaster if you want.
Yeah, and for you guys on the channel, that's kind of how this relationship has started. There are a couple of products that I wish existed, and Jim said we could probably make that happen.
Yeah, that's the fun part. Like Dream handlebars, that was suggested. It's kind of a remake of an old Specialized mountain bike bar. But the guy that suggested that was Darren at Dream Cycle in Vancouver. And that was like a really big hit. We do the same with, Joseph Ahern, Jeremy Csip, Steve Potts, all kinds of people. Any way that we can kind of, fit in and facilitate something that's brand new. Right. That's what we love to do. As you can see, we're a little tight. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but again, being next to San Francisco, we have to maximize space. Bar tape back there. These are Soma handlebars. Right here is the kind of Nito section.
Nice.
For handlebars, and that's the Nito stem section.
This is Nito heaven, guys.
Yeah, it's Nito. During this whole thing, I talked to Akira in Taipei, and he is the only company that is still above capacity. He's booked out 2 years.
Oh, dang.
And no cancellations. Really a testament to his company. Behind there is the cranks. Here are MKS pedals, brakes, almost all Yokozuna or Diacomp. Here is where we stock Crane and Osaka bells. We have more Japanese inventory, non-Shimano, has to be said. More non-Shimano Japanese inventory than any other company.
How well do the bells do?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just like, it's either, relatively inexpensive bell that you could, find on Amazon or something like that, or it's a handmade Japanese one. Like, I'll give you an example. These bells are hand painted in Japan by one woman.
Dang.
Nami. Yeah. And I think she paints like 10,000 a year.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and they're absolutely remarkably uniform, literally hand painted.
Yeah.
And they do what they say they do. They're loud. They last forever. Some of the models haven't changed in 60, 80 years.
Wow.
Tongay more or less absorbed Longshan castings. So we have, like, for frame builders, we have Longshan castings. Here, all the Tongay tubing is upstairs with with our frames.
What frame builders are buying the lugs and the tubes?
Waterford, Jeremy Seasip, Steve Reck, Rock Lobster, Steve Potts.
Pretty well-known names.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they're all used to using Tongay prestige tubing.
Yeah.
And Longshan, as far as dropouts and castings, is traditionally the only game in town. Again, upstairs we use for racks and frames. Here are basically Japanese tires like Cazaderos and such.
Our favorite tires, by the way.
Here are the Go gloves. Here are some more racks. Here are the bottle cages, all Japanese.
Yeah, you guys just came out with this interesting one. This is the Tanaka.
Yeah, Tanaka, multi-hole, so you can mount it, in a lot of positions. It's also, we're going with earth tone colors. And we have a whole series of more of them coming out.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
it's doing something different
Yeah.
than just a regular cheap bottle cage.
Yeah. It's on trend. Earth tones are in.
Yeah. Got mustard and all kinds of different colors. Down here we have Japanese branded cycling caps, Area, Sagino, Suzu, Nido, Izumi, Soma, another Nido, all made by Pace in the USA. On that side we have ILE bags. On this side, Roadrunner. I have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, this looks like our shipping department at home. Like we're mostly sticker salesmen with a YouTube channel.
We'll pump in some more exciting products in
There you
there.
go.
That Dawes bike is a 34 Dawes. I bought it simply for the handlebar because it had a genuine Lottowasser handlebar on there that we needed to copy for Soma. So I had to buy the whole bike.
Right.
Yeah. That bike there, that's Sakai. That was a Japanese bike. That was the first bike I spec'd with my dad.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Here's Suze hubs and also the Suze hubs that were built for Steve Pott. Besides the mezzanines and the warehouse next door, that's the 2-bit tour of the outside. Actually, all the action happens in here. The company was founded in 1906 by Mr. Merry, Edwin Merry. And we have some records that state it might go back to 1903. But 1906 was a good time to start in San Francisco because it was just after the earthquake. My grandfather, around the turn of the century, was hired as a delivery boy. And we actually have copies of some of the orders. What a bike shop would do was just order what they sold that day.
Oh, wow.
So it would be like 2 nipples, 3 spokes, literally, like 1 handlebar grip. And that would be put into a bag and then he would deliver it. And then as time went on, he became a manager and eventually was running it for Mr. Merry. And at that time, Mr. Merry would go off and he would travel the world. And we have a very unique photo of him in Joe Nakamura's bike shop. Joe Nakamura, and that's Mr. Merry and Mr. Merry's son. And unbelievably, this was taken in Hiroshima in 1926. Wow. And as you can see, there's a dirt road. There's a guy in a kimono while a guy in a suit. Mm-hmm. And we have been dealing with Asia since our inception. And the reason why that started that way, we were so west-leaning, or east, depending on how you look at it, was San Francisco was extremely isolated back then. It was the only metropolis on the entire west coast of the Americas. And there was only one railroad line that went back there. Mm-hmm. And so anything that was brought from back east was extremely expensive, and it was easier to source from countries like Japan. And through the history of the bicycle industry, we've over the decades have represented Shimano, Suntour, SRAM, Campanolo, you name it. Within the last 30 years or so, we develop our own brands, but more the case kind of co-develop products with friendly Japanese and friendly American companies.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with some of the Asian companies? Like, it sounds like it's not just like a fly-by-night thing, that you guys have a long history.
My grandfather was in the Navy in World War I, and my father was in the Navy in World War II. And the families that we were doing business with, we still have the telexes where it's going as we approach 1940 and 1941, they're getting increasingly ominous, and they usually, state, nothing's good going to happen to this. Something terrible is going to happen. Something terrible is going to happen. And then when the war started, we were converted to war work. We're told to stop to do everything, and they told us that we were distributing paint. So there would be like, green paint, and then there was all kinds of stuff. And then after the war, we started up again, and the same Japanese families came to visit us, and they said, that thing, is it like all over now? We were thinking about we could start business again. Oh yeah, sure. That's old news. Let's do it. Yeah. So a lot of our relationships go even prior to World War II. So that went from my grandfather to my father in the 50s to the 90s, and then I took over. And my sister took over in the 90s, and I got 4 kids, so maybe, possibly 5 generations.
A lot of people are probably more familiar with Soma than they are, Mary Sales. What's the relationship between Soma and Mary Sales?
Soma and Surly, to an extent, are descendants from Breezer. And I was trained and also worked with Joe Breeze, developing the Breezer line that was made at Hodaka. That went on from the 80s to maybe 2000, I'm thinking. At the final stage, we were very frustrated because we'd bring in a Breezer, XT equipped, and to a dealer, and then, he'd put it next to like a Trek. Mm-hmm. And says, well, this is XT equipped and that's XT equipped. Why is yours $500 more? But we noticed that, when we take all the parts off and then you just compare the 2 frames, the Breezer value is, absolutely, irrefutable. Right. So the last year or two, we did was just import frames. Now, we arranged that quality would do Breezer back east through the Japanese trading company that controlled everything. And when Joe kind of went his own way, we were kind of left high and dry with like a huge knowledge base and dealer network and everything about it. So rather independently, they came up with Surly, and then we came up with Soma, and it blossomed from there. This actually is kind of an interesting painting. We commissioned it for Mona Karen, who's really good local artist. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted was to have influences of San Francisco here. The cypress tree, Sutra Tower, you get to tell Spanish tile, on the houses, steep hills, the cliffs, the fog.
So Jim, you've been like a big supporter of the channel, offering our Patreon supporters a discount. Like why support Pathless Pedal?
Well, because our emphasis is the same. The bicycle business, to its own detriment, is race-centric. Mm-hmm. And we sell race products and have nothing against racing, but there's nothing for, casual riding, having a bicycle lifestyle, but, not being that kind of race culture. A good example of what I'm talking about is, I heard a rumor like one time, the Velo News, went to the hand-built bike show, and their single comment was, "We don't get it. We're the race bikes." You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so media outlets like you are, they're non-existent. I mean, you really have a focus on a completely unaddressed subject.
Let's talk about your relationship with Rivendell. So you help them bring some products to market.
We help each other.
Yeah.
Grant is extremely special. I mean, I have never met anyone that's as open, transparent. Grant and I, we talk on a daily basis, and usually it's just BS, but often it is like, I really want to do this, but and then I'll say, well, we could do that, no problem.
Right.
We share the project where basically it's not this cut and dry, but basically we'll get it done, share the shipment with Rivendell. They get it at a cost. They go more or less retail, and we go more or less wholesale selling to dealers, and it works out perfect because Rivendell, the way they're structured, kind of views dealer orders is kind of confusing, and it's hard for them to manage.
Right.
And so they're more than happy for us to take that over.
So one of the products you're helping us to kind of bring to market is a bar-end 12-speed friction shifter, which apparently has a really interesting backstory. So can you fill us in on that?
Well, yeah, that was built by Diacopi, which is Kozo Yoshigai, and his right-hand man is Mike. And, we started that the minute, you gave me the idea. And I was literally on the phone to him, I wait till like 5 or 6 o'clock because that's when they start coming in Asia. Was immediately said, oh yeah, no problem, blah, blah, blah. Because Grant paid for the tooling for the Ratchet, which was extremely expensive, and that was kind of more or less a duplicate of the old Suntour Ratchet thing. I said, maybe I ought to tell Grant.
Right.
And say, hey, Grant, we're doing this 11-speed shifter, and he's always extremely gracious with everything. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, they did that. Did Mike and Kozo do that with? They didn't ask me. And I said, well, a lot of people don't ask you, and there have been kind of arguments over the ownership of that, which Grant and Rivendell firmly own. That's why I called.
Right.
And then that it was not a fight. It wasn't a Flister brother, but Grant kind of took the opportunity to say, okay, your project is fine, but I just want everybody to know that that's our tooling and we, whatever. I said, absolutely. And how about we'll do one up is, what if Russ does a video completely of the Ratchet thing? He said, that would be great. That would set the record straight.
Right.
Whether Diacomp owns the thing or whatever. It's all been resolved. Everything is fine. In fact, I'm so glad I made that phone call. Grant being at Bridgestone, in those days, by far the best, friction shifter was the Ratchet shifter. Mm-hmm. That pulled the derailleur when the Ratchet was engaged and released it, effortlessly. And that's the mechanism that we're using. And we have Grant's blessing. Like I said, he's just a remarkable human being.
Do you know why Riv had to recreate the Ratchet? Was all the original tooling destroyed or lost? Or?
Oh, the Suntour stuff was all destroyed, yeah.
Oh, was it?
It's an unfortunate habit for factories to destroy their old tooling.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I keep my TBG, and these are catalogs of products. I have them going all the way back to the 80s. Because, the bicycle business goes in cycles,
mm-hmm.
And you can pull it, okay, we're in cycle, 12, so let's go back to cycle 11 and try to see if any of the tooling's left, and only maybe 10% of the cases is it. And with drivetrains getting so complicated and, it's 12 speed, but it's not compatible with this 12 speed and this and that. There's a real fundamental need for something that works with everything. I think it's the emphasis of your channel.
Right.
Is that, do you really want to buy a derailleur that you have to register with your phone?
Right.
Do you really want to have a bike that if you don't plug it in, it's a 1-speed? It violates the core principles of simplicity, serviceability, mm-hmm. And the opposite of planned obsolescence. We love the fact of something being rebuilt, reused, that's simple, and our life is complicated enough. There's certain things in my phone I don't understand, and I really don't want to learn anymore. If I go on a bike ride, what I want to do is just flush my brain out.
Right.
Yeah,
that's how I feel too. It's like the bike for me is a haven away from all the complexity, and unfortunately, it seems like the industry at large is.
Well, that's their nature. The thing is. I have an analogy, that's the only way I talk. But if the bicycle business was, say, the automobile business, every company would be chasing Ferrari. And no one would be thinking of making a Toyota Corolla or even something better like a utility vehicle. Like, for someone who has a big family, we'll make you an ATV. If someone has to pull cargo, we'll make you a truck.
Right.
We'll do the. It is completely based upon racing.
That's why we're such a good match.
Yeah, exactly.
That is such a cool story about the Ratchet though. I feel like it's something that's easy to take for granted.
In fact, I'll tell you this is our hardest thing. One of the reasons, say, like Nido is so valuable as a supply source is, let's say, quill stems, okay? A forging for a quill stem, I haven't priced it lately, but a good guess would be like $20,000, $30,000 for one forging, for one size, okay? They have sizes from like 130 down to like 60 on all their stems. They did that at a time when they could go to Schwinn or to Bridgestone and get orders for millions of them.
Right.
Okay, that would pay for that tooling. Well, those orders are gone, you know, and it's who requires those stems are people like us and your audience and other people's audience, and yet that tooling exists.
Right.
And it can't be reproduced. It cannot, in all rationale, be reproduced.
Right.
And when you go backwards, say for like the ratchet shifter, or other components, you know, we've done thumb shifters and things of that nature. You can't use the same methods that were employed, you know, where they did, you know, high-speed stamping or powdered metal, Lord knows what, to make millions and millions of something. Mm-hmm. You have to use other methods to do it, and it can get extremely complex and extremely expensive because, you know, we sell thousands of things, and they used to sell millions of them. So, you know, when Suntour came out with that ratchet shifter, you know, they possibly could have looked at a bill to make it of a few $100,000, but at the time it was nothing compared to the volume. Now, you know, building something that existed that was built with high-speed tooling and doing it on a low production level relatively it's an extreme challenge.
That's one of the things I'm actually concerned about. It's like I feel like we're at this era where we're losing a lot of like functional old tech, and once they're gone, like for example the front derailleur, you know, it's going to be extremely expensive or difficult to have them recreated at that same level of quality.
I guarantee you, Grant and I will not allow that to happen.
Okay.
I guarantee you. That's exactly his. I hope I'm not speaking for him, but what I notice about him is what he wants to be is completely insular. Not insular like, oh, don't look at what I'm doing, but he doesn't want to be relying upon major manufacturers.
Yeah.
And that's why he's on a quest to make his own components, and we help him every way we can.
Yeah.
Like he'll call me up one morning and like the cassette, the 1342, you know, no problem. You know, I'll have it for you in 3 months, you know, in 90 days.
Yeah.
And stuff like I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because if it's a good idea to him, it's a good idea for, you know, 50,000 people.
Right.
You'll be seeing stuff not only with your shifter, but a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Awesome.
It won't go away.
Cool.
And if something does go away, we view that as an opportunity.
Well, thanks, Jim, so much for the tour and the chat. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I thought it was important to share with you guys like the backstory of Merry Sales and why we're going to be collaborating with some future products. Yeah, with all that said, hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and keep the supple side down.